All right, moving on to some news about Afghanistan, where the Taliban met with the U.S. In Qatar. It's very unclear of what happened at these talks because there's essentially conflicting statements coming out. The Taliban say the U.S. has agreed to provide humanitarian aid to Afghanistan, where the U.S. statement from the talks was far more non-committal, just saying that we agreed to discuss it and it was discussed. Now, I'm not saying that it's not a good thing that it wasn't discussed and that it's good that there's talks going on between the U.S. and the Taliban. But if this is just talks and there's no aid coming out of it, and if the Taliban are misreading the American signals about aid, that could be maybe a real issue down the road between the U.S. and the Taliban. But we'll see what the U.S. does. One of the plans, this one from the UN, is a little bit interesting, where they want to fly cash payments in to help Afghans. And what this article points out is about 75% of Afghan public funds were cut off once the Taliban took control of the country, because that amount of the money was coming from foreign sources that are no longer giving the money to the Afghans because the Taliban are in charge. And so the UN is attempting to get around this by flying money into Kabul and giving it away directly to the Afghan citizens. Now, I don't know, maybe this will work, but it seems like it's going to have a lot of problems, including if you're just injecting a bunch of cash into a struggling society. Maybe that is going to give some temporary reprieve, but eventually there is going to be market forces that are at work and have to correct for that. And it seems that part of what it would actually be is just maybe an attempt to put off the economic reordering in Afghanistan that needs to happen, because obviously as much public money isn't going to continue to flow into Afghanistan now as it was before. Not public money, international money, I should say. With, again, it being 75% of public spending before. And so this is uh, probably a stopgap, if anything. It may help the situation in the long term, but it just will compound Afghanistan's economic problems. And of course, it's so hypocritical of the West to try to like leverage everything in Afghanistan like this. There probably were ways to create a little bit of a softer landing for the Afghan people, as far as maybe continuing some payments for schooling or healthcare, anything that you can moving forward, rather than turning it all off as they did essentially as soon as the Taliban took over, and freezing all of Afghanistan's account funds. Also, for the past 20 years, having this corrupt system in Afghanistan that can't be sustained, right? They create an unsustainable situation, and now we're seeing the consequences of that. And while the Taliban are partly at fault, the narrative of this is like, look how poorly the Taliban are doing. But essentially, they came in at the absolute worst time, where you had a massive crash after 20 years of irresponsibility and kleptocracy from the West. Now, there were also talks in Kabul between the Taliban and envoys from the UK government. So, very interesting that more and more countries, I think, are realizing that the Taliban are here to stay. And if they want to at all help anyone in Afghanistan, anybody with dual citizenship, or have any future saying what happens in Afghanistan, they're going to have to work somewhat, at least, with the Taliban. Now, also happening in Afghanistan is an increase in, not an increase in, but another ISIS-K attack, this one on a mosque. The Taliban report the death toll, I believe, to be 46, with other sources saying that the death toll could be between 70 and 80. I believe the mosque targeted the minority Shiite Muslim community in Afghanistan, and that it happened in the Khost province of Afghanistan. And so it seems like the Islamic State Khorasan faction probably carried out this attack. The Taliban have been claiming they've been carrying out some successful raids against ISIS-K. They say they will not work with the United States against the group. Frankly, it made sense to me. Maybe somewhat in some way the Taliban are tying their hands a little bit by not trying to get access to some US intelligence, but they probably see it, and probably correctly so, as making a deal with the devil as far as trying to work with the US on taking out ISIS-K, and they do have some capabilities. Again, they've carried out a couple successful operations against ISIS-K, and it's not like this kind of thing wasn't happening when the US was in charge of the country. ISIS-K has carried out suicide attacks on these kind of targets for the past 4 years. Last story on Afghanistan, and this is just a quick one, little update here, and it's about what the hell happened in the final days of the Afghan government when Afghanistan's president Ashraf Ghani fled the country, and the U.S. and Special Inspector General for Afghan Reconstruction, SIGAR, that post is headed by John Sopko, said his office would look into allegations that the former president of Afghanistan took millions of dollars with him when he left the country. It's unclear how true these reports are, but if there is a U.S. official who I would kind of guess would maybe give us an accurate account of what happened and if Ghani stole the money, it is John Sopko. If you look at the reports that have come out from SIGAR, they have been the most honest reports from the U.S. government, maybe over the past 10 years in total, but certainly on any kind of military issues. And so I'm hoping that we get some real reporting there. And I'm not saying that for sure he stole the money, but it seems like a hell of a lot of money is missing. And hopefully Sopko goes deeper than just looking at Ghani and looking at where all of our money went. This is money that if it was given to anybody listening to this show, anybody who's listening to this show, especially if you're a libertarian or a leftist grassroots, imagine if you could give the amount of money that Ghani stole to your favorite organization, whether that's antiwar.com, the Libertarian Institute, like the Gray Zone, you want to donate it to Jimmy Dore or Dave Smith or something like that. Just think about what that kind of money could do, and just how it was squandered and stolen by people who we don't know who the hell they are in Afghanistan. They're probably really bad people. They're probably warlords. They probably are involved in the child rape. They're probably involved in the oppression of women and all this other terrible stuff. And we gave all of them tons of money, and figuring out where the hell that money went and then holding people accountable would certainly really made me happy. And not that I think it'll go as far as holding people accountable, but figuring out where that money went, maybe Sopko could do that. Last